Hi guys, this is Travis from Scroll Saw Goodies. Welcome back to another episode. We're continuing on our classroom series as we learn to use this program Inkscape to create scroll saw patterns. This is lesson number 5. We'll be talking about nodes and editing nodes. This is really where the power of vector graphics really come into play, and it should be I would say probably the most important lesson of the entire series. So really, if you could get these concepts down, um, there's really no stopping you. So let's go ahead and just jump in and get our hands dirty a little bit. Now, if you remember from the very first episode, I talked about the difference between vector graphics and bitmap or raster graphics. And I basically said that vector graphics is a mathematical representation of a particular image. And the way we get to those mathematical representations is by the use of nodes. And nodes, for kind of an easy way to think of nodes, is think of them like a dot to dot. If you have a series of dots and you connect a straight line to each one of those dots, that's basically what a node is. The only difference is that nodes could also add arcs to those lines instead of just being straight lines. And basically there's a mathematical representation between one node or one dot to the next node. And that's kind of what we're playing with. So let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to go ahead and create a square just right in the middle of the paper here. And if we, and I'm going to come over here to my node editor. It's this little tool right here in the corner. And as you see on the options bar, we have a lot of new options. Now I could come over here to the square and I could start changing a lot of these properties, very similar to the way you would use the rectangle tool. But you know, this is nice, but what we're going to be more interested in is editing nodes. And in order to do that, you could do a couple of things. The way I usually do it is I come up here to Path, Object to Path, and I click that, and you'll notice that these little buttons or these little the editor nodes change from the square here and here and a circle here to triangles, or not triangles, diamonds in each one of these corners. Basically that means we're in node editing. It allows us to grab one of these corners and move them out. And that's really all node editing really is. You just grab one of these nodes and you could pull them out, and you could kind of see, you could start shaping how you want your design. So to create the path, object path, there's also a button in the toolbar. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and delete this this shape. Let's create our new square here. You could also do that in the toolbar. We have this option right here, convert section to path, and that gets us to the exact same point. You also notice that you have another button right next to it. It's called Convert Selected Object Stroke to Paths. And that's basically meaning that if you have an outline that you like and you'd like to actually edit the outline and the shape of the outline, you could do that too. So let's go ahead and delete this one, and let's go ahead and create a new square. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this square and I'm just going to really bump up the stroke to something that you can really see. Yeah, nice beefy stroke like that. So if we have this selected, we go over to our node editor and we select our stroke to path, which is also under here, stroke to path. We have either option. So I'm going to go ahead and click this button. And what that does, let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. That basically means that it just took our outline and it made that into an object as opposed to the actual square. So now I could, you know, fiddle around with the outline as opposed to fiddling around with the square. So that is an option there as well. Just know that it's there. I don't really use it very much, but you know, there might be a time when you're interested in using that. So let's go ahead and delete that. And let's go back to our square. Let's get a decent stroke on there. and we'll click our node editor, and let's go ahead and convert this one to a path. Now, like I said, each one of these corners has a node, and we could edit those nodes by just clicking and dragging, and we could move them any which way we want. Okay, so let's go ahead and get a little bit of terminology out of the way. These actual corner pieces, these are considered nodes. The line between two nodes, that is considered a segment. So if I click this segment, let's get a lighter gray just so we can see these segments a little bit better. But this area right here is considered a segment, whereas these are actually considered nodes. And you could edit both segments or nodes. They more or less, well, they don't really do the same thing, but they do get to the same end result, if that makes any sense. Let's go ahead and take a look at a few things. Let's just show you the most simplest way to add a node. The way I like to do it, let's say I want to add a node between this node and this node. I just want to add it. No, let's put it right here. All you got to do is just double click on that path and you have a new node. Okay, so you can kind of start to see how you can start shaping a simple square into something that might actually start looking like something. And it's just a simple double click. Now you could also select a segment here. If I just go ahead and click it once on this segment, you'll see that this node and the bottom node are both added. And we could come over here to the plus sign, and what that's going to do is it's going to add a node to the exact center. So I could go ahead and click that, and that's a really great way to find the exact center of a particular segment, because there's going to be times when you want that. And if I hold down the control button, let's go ahead and select only the middle one. If I hold down the control button, you can see I could kind of constrain that so it stays in the exact center and doesn't deviate from the center. There's going to be times when you want it precise. You could continue doing this as many times as you want. I'm going to select, well, you could either select this segment to select these two nodes here, or you could click one, shift click the next to add it, or you could even just do a little marquee box to add it. So I'm going to go ahead and add one more node, and it adds a node to the center. And since all three of these are selected still, I could click this button again, and as you can see, it adds one node between each one of these segments. And I could keep doing that as much as I want, really. But you get to the point where it gets a little overcomplicated, and it's more pain to work with than anything. I'm going to go ahead and delete those. To delete a node, just highlight the node, hit your delete key, and that's it. Simple as that. You could do the same thing by selecting the minus node. So let's say we want to get rid of these two nodes. I could put a little marquee around it. I could click the minus button, or I could hit the delete key. Either way works just fine. This section we're going to talk about in a little bit. And we're going to be kind of talking about making curves. Now, as you remember, we could add these nodes and we could start getting into kind of a rough shape, but it's a little boxy. It's not very accurate. To make a curve is real easy. You just select a segment, and you notice that both nodes are selected. But just go ahead and click and drag a segment, and now you have a little curve, and you could adjust the curve any which way you want. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pull this out a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and release it. And when I select one of these nodes, let's see if I could get there we go. If you don't see these little handles here, this button right here will show you the Bezier handles. And basically what these handles are, let's move this over to the side a little bit, is it kind of controls the arc, how deep and how sharp the arc is. So if I select any one of these nodes, you'll see the Bezier between the two curves. Basically, that segment is curved, so you'll see the Bezier handles on both of these nodes. So I could click this little circle here and I could adjust just this one node's Bezier handle, and you can see that you have a lot more control. You could really pull it out to give it a lot of real nice sharp, or I could pull it back in to make it real shallow. And you could kind of control that how you want the arc to show up just by working these handles. And it's going to take a little trial and error until you get the feel for it. You could do like a nice little curve there, or you could take this Bezier and we'll turn it in this way, and now you got an S-curve. So there's a lot of little options there that you can use to create those. So we have these Beziers. So I guess really what comes now is these little tools up here. We have several different tools. These are different kinds of Beziers. If this one here allows me to make sharp corners. So let's say, let's go ahead and curve this one in. As you can see, if I click out here, this comes to a real nice sharp point. And that's what this button allows me to do. I could select that node and I could click the sharp corner, and it allows me to do nice sharp corners. And I just get the sharp corners by messing around with the Bezier handles and adjusting them appropriately. The next option is to make a smooth Bezier. And basically what that does, well, let's just go ahead and click and I'll show you what it does. You notice that this Bezier handle and then this Bezier handle kind of flatten out. And let me click out here and you'll kind of see how this area is nice and smooth. There's a nice transition. There's no little bumps or anything like that. So I could adjust the length of each one of these Beziers independently, and I could get nice shallow or sharp curves. And I could do the same thing on this side. I could make it as shallow as you want. But as you notice that this path here will stay straight no matter which way you do it. If I wanted it sharp again, I just go ahead and click the sharpness, and now I could bend it any which way I want. But we want that smooth. We want a smooth transition, so I'm going to go ahead and click that, and we'll adjust our Bezier. And that's how that works. So I'm going to go ahead and shorten this thing up to something like that. And you can kind of see how that works. It's just kind of a nice soft round corner there, nothing sharp. The next option is similar to the smooth option. But what that's going to do is that it's going to make this Bezier handle and then this Bezier handle the same length. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and you'll see what happens. And now when I try to shrink it, you'll see that this handle also shrinks. So it keeps everything nice and symmetrical. And sometimes you'll want that. So you can see the arch is nice and even on both sides. If I extend them out, it comes in and out exactly even. So those are basically your three different kinds of Beziers. These next segments we could make, well, let's just choose a segment. These are for segments. So if we choose a segment, we have this segment here, which is between this node and this node. And if we decide we want to make that a straight line, we could do so by clicking this button. And it removes the Bezier from that. And sometimes if you're starting to mess around with Beziers and you just get everything all goofed up and you just need to start over, just go ahead and select the segment and click the straight line. It's going to remove the Beziers, and then you could kind of come back in again and start fiddling around with it once again. This button is to make a straight segment curved. So let's say this one's a straight segment, so I could click the curve button, and you'll see that the Bezier handles show up there. And that's kind of nice because if you do it like that, you start off with even Beziers, and there's really not as much guesswork, so you can kind of pull that out and more or less keep it the same. I really don't use this too much. I usually just kind of grab the segment and pull out however I need to do that. So let's see what other options do we have. Over here is our X and Y axis. This is just the location of a particular node that we're working with. If you notice, if I'm messing around with the Bezier, the X and Y don't move. But if I click and drag the Bezier, the X and Y change. And you might want to know what that is just for lining things up, perhaps. I've never used it, but I can see how it could be helpful. Okay, let's go ahead and let's talk about this little section right here. Well, let's just start with the end. Basically, what I could do is I could select two nodes. So let's go ahead and select these two nodes. And this button right here will break the path at the selected nodes. Okay, in fact, I think you could have one chosen if you'd like. And you could click this and it will break the path. And now you'll have two segments. And you can kind of see the path kind of breaks right there. And then this area is open. So basically all that's going to do is break the path. Okay, let's go ahead and Control Z that out. This one here is it's going to split the path between two non-node endpoints. So I'm going to select these two nodes and I'm going to remove that segment basically. And that just basically removes the segment. I could select let's select this curve here. I could go ahead and remove this segment here by doing the same thing. And as you can see, it just kind of, since the object was kind of broken anyway, basically I created two objects. So that is an option for that. I'm going to Control Z this out a little bit just so we have a closed object once again. Okay, this one is to join selected end nodes. Let's say we have the Bezier tool. This is that straight line tool that I was talking about. And let's say we'll create a unusual shape. And it's just a path. A little bit of line art. If we go into our node editing, we could select these two, this node and this node, and click this button, and it's going to create a straight line between this node and this node. So basically it's just going to connect them just like that. As opposed to that would be joining these. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to move this node up, this node down, and it's going to connect them. And as you can see now, they are now connected. And it's a closed shape now, and we could add a fill if we'd like. Okay. While we're talking about the Bezier tool, I remember I was talking about this line tool. We could use this to create basic line art, and we could do it dot to dot. Hit return when you're done, and you have just an outline or a path, and it works really pretty much the same way. You know, you could grab one of these segments and you could turn them. Let's say we want this one to be fairly smooth, so let's go ahead and smooth that out. Let's go ahead and sharpen that one, and let's sharpen this one, and then we want this one to be smooth. So you can kind of see how we can start creating line art with this Bezier tool. So that's basically how you could start creating complex shapes. So you could kind of start to see how you could start making some of these more complicated shapes. One of the real nice things about using this is that you could also use this to trace. So I have over on Wiki Commons, I found this really nice picture of an elk. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. I'm going to right click, I'm going to copy the image to my clipboard, and I'm going to come back to Inkscape. I'm going to Control V will paste, and there we have our elk. So I'm going to delete these sample files, and I'm going to enlarge this elk just a little bit just so we can see it a little bit better. And we can start tracing some of these elements. Now I could come over here and use the Bezier, and I could start making dot to dot around there. I usually don't like working like that. I like working with a square. So I'm going to go ahead and create a square. I'm going to select my node editor. I'm going to come up to Path, Object to Path, and now I can start editing my nodes. So let's go ahead and make this square transparent. So I'm going to come down to Fill, remove the fill, and let's go ahead and make the outline red just so we could see it a little bit better. So I'm going to set the stroke to red. And now what I'm going to do is just kind of zoom in a little bit and start adding nodes. So if you remember right, double clicking will add a node, and we could just start adding nodes to the parts that we know we could get curves. Right here is a nice sharp curve. The muzzle here, let's go ahead and start playing around with our curves. I could start pulling these things out. And that's basically what we're going to kind of start playing with. And this is a really great way to trace some pictures to use for your own clip art. Just make sure you're using photographs that are in the public domain. And then you can start tracing your... see, now this one has a little bit of an S-curve. As you can see, it kind of comes over there and around like that. So I'm going to go ahead and straighten this thing up just because it got a little wonky. And now I'm going to go ahead and start curving this. And then this one, I need to kind of pull up just a hair. And then this one needs to, I'm going to grab this handle and pull this one out just a little bit. And this is basically all we're going to be doing. I might even go ahead and show you how I end up tracing this elk. Right here is a nice little curve. And basically we're just looking for little intersections where a curve will curve back. And we kind of lose his feet in the grass a little bit, so I'm just going to go ahead and square it off down here. And I'm going to pull this in. And you could do this for any number of reasons. Maybe you're making a silhouette for a sun catcher or for a Christmas ornament. And depending on what kind of project you have in mind for it, really depends on how much detail you really need. So let's say I'm doing this for I don't know, just a sun catcher or something like that. I don't need nearly as much detail. Let's go ahead and pull that out. I'm going to add a node over here and just pull a way out here just so I'm not stepping on top of myself there. And this is really kind of how you start putting together some of your patterns. And really once you kind of get used to it, it's real easy. It won't take you long to, it won't take you long at all to knock out one of these outlines. Okay, I'm just going to kind of come up here onto his rump, and then we're going to add a little bit of detail. See, right here, let's say if we didn't really need that much detail, I could probably put this node way the heck up here, even right there, and we could just, with nothing but these Bezier tool, we could get that to come all the way around. Now there's a little hump right here, so we're going to have to put nodes on each side of that hump. Now this is the one where we'll probably need a nice smooth transition here. So maybe right here, I might just use this button right here and just just to guarantee that there aren't any sharp corners there. Okay. Now we'll have to double check our Bezier. And then we'll pull this. Pull the hump up right here. And then this one will pull down a little bit. We'll pull this one up just a tish. I'm not going to get into the antlers because that's just not what we need. That's a little bit more work than I want to kind of go into here. This area here is getting a little wonky for me, so I'm going to select both of those. I'm going to straighten out that line so I could add nodes without too much hassle. And then I'll come back and I'll straighten those out. Okay, so we got a little bit of an outline here. Let's go ahead and start. Well, let's pull this thing out a little bit. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of detail. Let's extend this over here. So I'm going to grab the Bezier. I'm just going to go ahead and I'll just click twice. Hit enter. I'm going to make sure that's red as well. Set the stroke of that. And now I could come in here and start editing. So let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit so we can see that. I'm going to stop right there. And this is going to end right in through here. So we'll just start adding our curves. And you can kind of see how the outline's starting to take shape. And once we have the outline and all of our veining or interior design done with the Bezier tool, we could just select the photograph, either move it out of the way, delete it altogether. But as you can kind of see, we have the beginnings of a scroll saw pattern of an elk. So that's basically that. Take some time and play around with each one of these nodes, and just grab some clip art off the internet or some photographs and just practice tracing. And really, once you start learning how to trace things, you'll really start to understand how nodes work, how adding Beziers work, and really how to get spot on accuracy and draw out these images very, very quickly. And you might want to start collecting some of these little silhouettes and just kind of keep them on file. Let's say this elk. This is a beautiful elk. Maybe I'll trace this thing out and then keep it on file, and someday maybe my uncle bags himself a really nice elk, so I decide I'm going to make him a nice picture frame. Well, I already have an elk clip art already in my library that I've created myself. I could just create the frame real quickly, add the clip art to it, and within a very short amount of time I would have a beautiful pattern that is completely custom and unique. So go ahead and play around with that. And next week we're going to be talking about text, and so be sure to check that out as well. I hope you learned a thing or two. Go out there and start playing. I hope you enjoyed this installment of our continuing classroom series on how to use Inkscape to create scroll saw patterns. You can find this lesson and others over at scrollsawvillage.com in the Village University forum. There you'll find videos, written instruction, downloadable source material, and of course classroom discussion where you can have all your questions answered. This video series is produced by Scroll Saw Goodies in association with Scroll Saw Village. Be sure to stop by and say hi, and until next time, happy scrolling.